This story is titled, My Family Forced Me Babysit Their Kids Every Christmas While They Celebrated and Had Fun. But last year I said, I'm done and now they are mad. Hey everyone. Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Hey y'all, so this is my life story. Or at least the part where I realized my family treated me like an accessory they forgot to return to the store. I'm the youngest of three, but not in the spoiled baby of the family way. More like, we didn't know we were having another one vibe. My two older siblings? They were basically the royal family of our house. Me? I was the intern they forgot to invite to meetings. By the time I was born, my parents were over the whole parenting thing. My siblings, let's call them eldest and middle, because I'm trying to keep this anonymous, and also they don't deserve cool nicknames. We're already way older. Eldest was 12 years ahead of me, and middle was 10. That meant when I was learning to walk, they were learning to drive. When I was figuring out crayons, they were figuring out eyeliner and boyfriends. You get the picture. Our house was loud, but not in a fun family sitcom kind of way. It was loud with, eldest got straight A's again, or middle just made cheer captain. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there like, yo, I got all my spelling words right this week. Anyone care? Obviously no. One time, I remember eldest bringing home her first boyfriend. He had spiky hair that screamed early 2000s emo, and shook Dad's hand like he was signing a mortgage. I was peeking through the banister, fascinated by this guy who smelled like too much Axe body spray. Middle wasn't far behind, dating her first boyfriend a year later. It was like watching a real-life drama unfold, and I was the bored audience with nothing else to watch. My parents? Obsessed with them. Mom spent hours helping eldest pick out prom dresses while I got a half-hearted, finish your homework, honey, as she walked past me to discuss college applications with middle. Dad would light up at dinner to announce middle's latest cheer competition, or eldest's SAT scores. Meanwhile, I'm pushing peas around my plate, wondering if anyone noticed I existed. But they didn't. When eldest got into her dream college, it was like Christmas and New Year's had combined into one giant celebration. Pancakes for breakfast, balloons, the works. I sat at the table, eating my syrupy pancake of sadness, knowing no one was going to throw a party when I got into something. Middle left for college 2 years later, and suddenly, I was the only kid in the house. You'd think that would mean I'd finally get some attention, right? Wrong. The house still felt like it belonged to them. Their rooms were frozen in time, shrines to their glory days. Trophies, photos, leftover hair straighteners. I could have burned their stuff, and my parents probably wouldn't have noticed until Christmas. But here's the thing. I'm not dumb. I figured out pretty early that I wasn't the star of the show. So I adapted. I did my own thing, stayed out of trouble, and kept my head down. By the time I was in high school, I had mastered the art of being invisible. Why bother trying when everyone's focus was permanently glued to the eldest and middle channel? Even when I did accomplish something, it barely registered. I remember bringing home a report card with all A's once, and Mom gave me this distracted, "That's nice, sweetie," while scrolling through pictures eldest had sent of her study abroad trip. Dad didn't even look up from the TV. I got used to it, though. It's not like I had a choice. My survival strategy became simple. Stay out of the way and figure out how to entertain myself. I read books, played video games, and did literally anything to avoid awkward family dinners where someone would inevitably bring up my siblings' achievements for the millionth time. Did I mention middle was the first in our family to get a full scholarship? Because my parents sure did. Constantly. By the time I hit 15, I'd perfected my ghost act. At school, I was that quiet kid who no one really knew, but everyone kind of liked. At home, I was the kid who made herself useful so she wouldn't get yelled at. Life wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible either. I figured this was just how things were going to be until I graduated and got the heck out of there. But oh no, life had plans. Big ones. And they involved me, my siblings, and a level of nonsense I wasn't remotely prepared for. This wasn't just about being invisible anymore. This was about being turned into a literal unpaid nanny. Anyway, let's fast forward to when things went from invisible sibling to indentured babysitting service. I was about 15 when eldest had her first kid. Let's call him Kid 1. At first, I was genuinely excited. Babies are cute, right? I remember holding him for the first time and thinking, wow, I'm going to be the fun aunt, the one who teaches him how to prank people and sneak cookies before dinner. It was sweet, at first. Then, one Saturday morning, eldest came over holding Kid 1 in one arm and her purse in the other. She barely made eye contact before dropping him into my lap. Can you watch him for a couple of hours? I really need to run some errands. She didn't even wait for an answer. She was halfway out the door, tossing a, "Thanks, you're the best," over her shoulder. 2 hours turned into 5. My errand was now trying to figure out how to stop a crying baby while also texting my friends, who were all at the mall having lives. When she finally came back, she acted like nothing was weird. "He didn't give you any trouble, right?" "Lady, your kid screamed in my ear for 3 hours because I couldn't find his favorite binky." That was just the start. Every weekend after that, eldest would magically show up with kid one. "I need a break," she'd say. Or, "It's just for a little while." Sometimes it was errands, sometimes it was brunch with friends, sometimes it was just because. And my parents? Oh, they were so supportive. "Family helps family," Mom would say, like it was a universal truth carved in stone. "You'll understand when you're older," Dad chimed in, usually while watching TV and doing absolutely nothing to help. Then Middle joined the party. She got pregnant a year later, and when her kid was born, it was like someone hit copy-paste on eldest's nonsense. Now I wasn't just watching kid one. I had kid two, a baby, and a hyperactive toddler running around. I remember one Saturday when I was really looking forward to going to the movies with a friend. Middle showed up with kid two, handed her to me, and left. I tried explaining my plans to Dad, bouncing a crying baby on one hip while kid one tried to color on the walls. "You should have thought about that before agreeing to watch the kids," he said, without even looking up from his crossword. I wanted to scream. Agreeing? I didn't agree to anything. They decided for me, like always, and forget about complaining to Mom. She just hit me with the classic, "Stop being selfish. Your sisters need help. You'll understand when you're a mother." If I had $1 for every time I heard that line, I could have paid someone else to do this nonsense for me. And by the way, I won't become a mother who throws her kids on others to watch out for them. Weekends became a circus. Weekends became a circus. Picture this. Me trying to help kid one build a block tower while kid two screamed bloody murder like he was auditioning for Baby Shark, the horror edition. I wasn't just an unpaid babysitter, I was the ringmaster of chaos. I wasn't just an unpaid babysitter, I was their emotional punching bag too. Middle would drop by to vent about how hard being a mom was while I was holding her kid so she could scroll Instagram. Eldest would complain about her stressful life while sipping lattes and leaving me with diaper duty. The worst part? No one even said thank you. Not once. Not a single. "Wow, Nancy, you're amazing for giving up your time so we can pretend we don't have kids for a few hours." Nothing. Just more kids, more work, and more guilt trips. By the time I hit 17, I was so over it. I started researching colleges like my life depended on it, which honestly, it did. And not just any colleges. No way was I sticking around for this nonsense. I needed somewhere far away, like takes 3 planes and a bus to get home. Far. I threw myself into school, studying like crazy and getting the best grades of my life. Every A was one step closer to freedom. When my acceptance letter came from a college on the other side of the country, I almost cried. But of course, my family had to try and ruin it. "Why would you want to go so far?" Mom asked, frowning like I'd just told her I was joining a cult. "The community college here has a great program. You could live at home and save money," Eldest added, like she wasn't picturing me as her live-in nanny. I shut that down fast. Grandma, bless her heart, came through with Grandpa's education fund and made sure I could go without depending on my parents. She was the real MVP in all this. Packing for college felt like escaping prison. I was finally going to have my own life. No crying kids, no judgmental siblings, no parents guilt-tripping me into servitude. Just me, my dorm, and a chance to be a normal person. College life was everything I dreamed of. The first semester flew by. I made friends, joined a study group, and even started working part-time to keep myself busy and avoid the bank of Mom and Dad. It was like I'd been handed a reset button for my entire life. But just when I thought I'd escaped, the holidays came knocking. Thanksgiving wasn't optional, apparently. Mom called a month in advance, already planning my welcome home, like I was a celebrity returning from a world tour. "Everyone's asking about you, Nancy. The kids can't wait to see you," she chirped. Translation? We need a babysitter. I showed up that year feeling cautiously optimistic. Maybe they'd changed? Maybe they'd miss me enough to treat me like an actual human. The moment I walked through the door, Eldest handed me kid 1 and kid 2 like they were handing off bags of groceries. Middle showed up 20 minutes later with her kids and immediately joined Mom in the kitchen, leaving me with the tiny tornadoes. At one point, I caught Dad sneaking a plate of appetizers while I was trying to stop Kid 1 from jumping off the couch. "You're so good with them," he said, like I was auditioning for America's Next Top Babysitter. "Yeah, I'm great," I muttered, trying to fish a crayon out of Kid 2's mouth. That day, I barely ate. By the time I wrangled the kids into their jackets and handed them off to their parents, the adults had already polished off dessert. Mom handed me a plate of lukewarm leftovers like she was doing me a favor. "Thank you, Nancy. You're such a big help." I wanted to scream. Instead, I smiled, nodded, and went back to college vowing never to come home again. But Christmas? Oh, Christmas was another beast entirely. Mom's text came in like a surprise. She'd invited everyone. All the kids, cousins, second cousins, neighbors, and maybe the mailman for all I knew. The message was dripping with excitement. "It'll be so wonderful to have the whole family together. The kids are so excited to see you." This time, I wasn't optimistic. I was angry. I could already see how it would go down. I'd spend Christmas running after 12 kids while everyone else ate, laughed, and swapped gifts. Meanwhile, I'd be upstairs, wiping noses and breaking up toddler fights. Nope, not this year. I decided I needed a plan. I wasn't just going to roll over and take it anymore. No more good little Nancy, who quietly did what she was told. I started laying the groundwork weeks in advance. My friends were in on it too, hyping me up like I was gearing up for some epic showdown. "You've got this," one of them said. "Stand your ground and don't let them guilt trip you." Christmas Day rolled around, and I walked into the house ready for battle. The kids were already swarming like bees, tearing through wrapping paper and screaming over toys as always. Eldest spotted me and made a beeline over, her youngest already on her hip. "Oh, good, you're here," she said, thrusting Kid 2 into my arms. "No," I said. Eldest blinked. "What?" I said no. "I'm not watching your kids today." For years, I thought this was just how things had to be. You know, when you're the youngest, they program you along with their beliefs, what they think is good and bad. I was the good kid, the helper, the invisible one. But the moment I said no, it was like a weight lifted off my chest. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't just surviving. I was standing up for myself. It was like I just announced I was canceling Christmas. The room didn't go silent, because let's be real, 12 kids are never silent. But the adults all stopped and stared at me. Eldest looked like I'd slapped her. Middle was frozen mid-sip of her coffee. Even Mom paused, holding a tray of cookies like she wasn't sure if she should put them down or throw them at me. "But who's going to watch the kids?" Middle finally said. Her voice panicked. "Not me," I said, shrugging. "I'm here to enjoy Christmas, just like everyone else. I mean, it's not like they are my kids." And then, I walked out of the room, just like that. I went upstairs, closed the door to my childhood bedroom, and flopped onto my old twin bed. My heart was racing, but I felt free. The best part? I had a backup plan. My friends were all hanging out that day, so I called them up, and they swung by to pick me up. We spent the rest of the day eating burgers, playing video games, and watching cheesy holiday movies. It was probably the best Christmas I'd had since I was like 5. When I got back to the house that night, it was a war zone. Mom shot me a look that could have melted steel, but I didn't care. I'd made it through the day without lifting a finger for their chaos. Upstairs in my room, I texted my friends, "Mission accomplished." Now picture this. I roll out of bed around 10 a.m., feeling like a queen who just reclaimed her throne. I head downstairs, expecting awkward silence or maybe some passive-aggressive comments. What I got was a full-blown intervention. Mom, Dad, Eldest, and Middle were all sitting there, looking like they'd rehearsed for this. Mom had her serious face on, the one she used when lecturing us about family values growing up. Dad was holding his coffee like it was the only thing keeping him from losing it. Eldest and Middle? Oh, they were practically vibrating with anger. Eldest was holding Kid 2, who was half asleep and drooling on her sweater, but she still managed to glare at me like I'd kicked a puppy. "Morning," I said, because, hey, I'm polite like that. "Sit down," Mom said, all clipped and dramatic, like she was a judge about to sentence me. I sat, mostly because I wanted to see where this was going. Dad started off with, "What happened yesterday?" but in that way where he already knew the answer and just wanted me to admit to being the worst person alive. "Oh, you mean how I refused to be the nanny for the 12 kids you guys invited over?" "Yeah, I decided I'd rather enjoy my Christmas for once," I said, leaning back in my chair. Middle jumped in immediately. "Do you even realize how selfish that was? We were all counting on you," she snapped, her voice high-pitched enough to make Kid 1 wince from across the room. "Counting on me for what? To do the job you signed up for when you decided to have kids?" I shot back. And let me tell you, the way Eldest's jaw dropped was chef's kiss. Mom decided it was her turn to pile on. "This isn't how family works, Nancy. We help each other. You don't just walk away when things get hard. Oh, so I'm the only one who has to help? I asked. Because I don't see anyone else spending their Christmas cleaning up juice spills and stopping toddlers from eating wrapping paper. They started talking over each other at that point. Classic family chaos. Eldest was complaining about how hard her life was as a mom of two. Middle was going on about how family duty is sacred, and Dad kept mumbling something about respect. I just sat there, letting them get it all out. Because honestly, it was kind of funny watching them lose it. When they finally ran out of steam, I hit them with the hurtful truth. Look, they're your kids. You decided to have them, not me. I'm done being the default babysitter just because it's convenient for you. And then Eldest hit me with her big move. Maybe it's time someone taught you a lesson about gratitude. Let's see how you manage without mom and dad paying for college. Oh, she thought she had me. The smirk on her face was so smug it could have powered a small town. But watching her face drop when I hit her with the truth, that was the real power surge. For once, I had control, and it felt amazing. I just smiled. Actually, I said, real casual, Grandma's been paying my tuition from Grandpa's education fund. You know, the same fund that helped you through nursing school and Middle through business school. Dead silence. It was glorious. Dad looked like he'd swallowed a lemon, and Mom just blinked at me like I'd started speaking in another language. Eldest's face turned so red I thought she might actually explode, which, honestly, would have been the cherry on top. I stood up, dusted off my hands like I'd just finished a hard day's work, and said, well, if we're done here, I've got a life to get back to. Then I went upstairs, packed my stuff in record time, and left without looking back. They tried to stop me, of course. Mom was yelling about how I was tearing the family apart, and Dad kept saying I was being dramatic. Eldest and Middle were too stunned to say much, which was a nice change. The drive back to campus was so peaceful, I didn't even care that the radio was stuck on static. It was like every mile I put between me and that house was another layer of weight lifting off my shoulders. By the time I got to my dorm, I felt lighter than I had in years. First thing I did when I got back? Blocked their numbers. All of them. Mom, Dad, Eldest, Middle, gone. It was like hitting a reset button on my brain. No more guilt trips, no more family duty, no more waking up to texts about how the kids were asking for me. They weren't. I knew they weren't just going to let it go. But at that moment, I didn't care. I was done being their doormat. But my family doesn't just drop things. It started a few weeks later. My roommate handed me a piece of mail one morning, looking confused. Who even sends letters anymore? She asked, tossing it onto my desk. I picked it up, and sure enough, it was from Mom. A full handwritten guilt trip disguised as a "How are you" letter. Let me tell you, this thing was a masterpiece of manipulation. She started off all sweet. We miss you so much, Nancy. The house feels so empty without you. And then bam, straight into how disappointed everyone was with my behavior over Christmas. Apparently, I embarrassed them in front of the extended family. The funniest part? She ended it with a casual, "You need to apologize to your sisters and make this right. Family is forever." Yeah, forever miserable maybe. I crumpled the letter and tossed it in the trash. The text started next. I hadn't blocked the unknown number option, and suddenly I was getting these random, vague messages like, "You need to come home. This has gone on long enough. We just want to talk, Nancy. Let's fix this. The kids miss you. Don't punish them for this." Punish them? I wasn't punishing anyone. I was just done being their free nanny. But the one that really made me laugh was from Middle. She somehow found a burner number to text me. "You can't just ghost us forever. You're still part of this family." Watch me. Anyway, a month or so goes by, and I'm thinking they've finally moved on. My life is peaceful again. I'm acing my classes, hanging out with my friends, and even joined this random debate club. Because why not? But then February rolls around, and guess who shows up unannounced? Yup, the parents. It was a Saturday morning, and I was half asleep, planning to spend the day binging Netflix in my pajamas. I glanced out the window and saw them standing in the dorm parking lot. Mom was clutching her purse like it was a shield, and Dad had this awkward stance like he wasn't sure whether to knock on my dorm door or just yell my name into the void. My first thought was to pretend I wasn't home. But then I figured, nah, let's hear what they have to say. So I threw on a hoodie, walked down to the lobby, and met them with my best "What are you doing here" face. Mom went straight into her concerned act. "Nancy, we've been worried about you. You didn't answer our calls or texts, and we had to see you." I folded my arms. "I didn't answer because I don't have anything to say to you." Dad cleared his throat, and all he managed was, "Can we buy you coffee? Just to talk." Fine, I thought. Let's hear them out. We walked to the little cafe on campus, and I grabbed the biggest latte I could get, mostly because I figured I'd need the energy to deal with whatever nonsense was coming. We sat down, And Mom started with the usual. We've been thinking a lot about what happened at Christmas. She trailed her finger around the rim of her coffee cup like she was nervous, which was weird because Mom's never nervous. Dad said, we didn't realize how much we were asking of you. Or maybe we didn't want to realize. Wait, what? This wasn't the guilt trip I was expecting. Mom sighed. We've been talking. A lot. And we know we've taken advantage of you, Nancy. For years. We told ourselves it was just family helping family, but it wasn't fair to you. It wasn't fair at all. I blinked. Was this an apology? From my parents? Dad nodded. You deserve to have your own holidays. Your own time. Not to be treated like a babysitter. I took a long sip of my latte, letting their words hang in the air for a minute. What about the sisters? I finally asked. Mom's face went tight. Eldest. Well, she's stubborn. She's not ready to admit she was wrong. But Middle understands now. She feels terrible about everything. Sure, Middle felt bad now that she had to wrangle her own kids, but I wasn't about to let that slide. So, what's the plan here? I asked. You came all this way to tell me you're sorry. What happens next? Mom leaned forward. We want you to come home for holidays because you want to, not because you're needed to help with the kids. Things will be different now. I promise. Dad nodded. No more pushing responsibilities on you. You're our daughter, not the family babysitter. I studied their faces for a long moment. Mom's eyes were sincere. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years. And for the first time in forever, they actually seemed real, like people, not just authority figures trying to run my life. Okay, I said finally. But if I come home and it's the same old nonsense, I'm walking out and not coming back. Mom nodded so fast. Of course, we understand. That was that. They left, and I sat in the cafe for a while, trying to process everything. It was weird. On one hand, I was relieved they finally got it. On the other hand, I wasn't about to let my guard down completely. When I got back to my dorm, I unblocked their numbers. Within 5 minutes, Middle texted me. Miss you, little sis. For real this time. That's it for now. I'll leave you here and maybe come back for another update to see if they are being real or not. Thanks for reading. Final update. Alright, so here we are again, your ex-free babysitter. So, after that coffee shop convo with my parents, things were okay-ish. I mean, they'd apologized, promised to stop treating me like a free nanny, and even seemed to mean it. Middle sent a few texts here and there, all hope you're doing well vibes, and I even visited home for a weekend in March. It wasn't terrible. The visit was weirdly calm. No kids were dropped into my lap, no one guilted me about family duty, and Mom even cooked my favorite dinner. For once, I wasn't on edge. It was nice, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it was all too good to be true. Turns out it was. The breaking point came over summer break. I'd planned to stay on campus to take extra classes and work, but Mom guilted me into coming home for a few. We haven't seen you in so long, Nancy. It'll be good to spend time together, she said, conveniently leaving out the part where she'd already promised eldest and middle I'd be home. So there I was, back in the house I'd worked so hard to escape. At first, it seemed fine. We had a nice dinner, and the kids were running around, but no one handed them off to me like usual. I thought, hey, maybe they're finally getting it. But then, a few days in, eldest showed up with kid 1 and kid 2. She looked exhausted. Hey, Nancy, she said, setting her bags down. I just need to run a few errands. Can you watch them for a bit? I froze. Was she serious? After everything? Nope, I said, as calm as I could. Eldest blinked like I'd just spoken in an alien language. What do you mean, no? It's just for a little while. It's not like you have anything to do. I mean, I'm not doing this anymore, I said, standing up. You've got 2 kids. They're your responsibility, not mine. Cue the fireworks. Eldest went off, yelling about how hard it is to be a mom and how family is supposed to help. Middle showed up halfway through the drama and, of course, took eldest's side. They tag-teamed me like it was WWE. You've changed so much since college, Middle said, like that was a bad thing. You're so selfish now. Selfish? I said, laughing. You've been using me as free childcare for years. How's that not selfish? Mom tried to step in, doing her whole let's calm down routine, but I wasn't having it. I grabbed my bag, looked at all of them and said, I'm done. For real this time. Dad said, Nancy, don't be dramatic, he said, which, let's be honest, is exactly what you say when you know you've lost the argument. I turned back, and in the calmest voice I could manage, I said, if you guys can't respect my boundaries, I'm not coming back. Period. And then I walked out. Back at my dorm, I did the only thing that made sense. Blocked their numbers again. All of them. Even Middle, who'd been slightly better than eldest. I wasn't risking any more random guilt trip texts popping up while I was trying to study. For the first few weeks, it was quiet. Too quiet. I thought maybe they'd finally given up. But no. Eldest found me on social media and sent this long message about how I was tearing the family apart and hurting the kids by not being around. Middle chimed in with a separate message about how they just wanted to go back to how things were. How things were? You mean me being treated like the family's unpaid servant? Hard pass. I ignored both messages. Honestly, blocking them again felt amazing. Since then, it's been radio silence. Mom sent me one last letter in the mail, full of flowery language about how much they love me and how they just want to make things right. But here's the thing. Making things right doesn't mean dragging me back into the same toxic cycle. So yeah, I'm done. Completely. Cutting ties was the hardest and best decision I've ever made. And before anyone asks, do I feel guilty? A little sometimes. But then I remember all those years I gave up my weekends, my holidays, and my sanity to take care of kids that weren't mine while everyone else lived their lives guilt-free. Now, I'm finally living for me. And honestly, it feels pretty damn good. Tell what you guys think in the comments.